Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In today's video, we are going to talk about something that affects every single business in the world, the supply chain. And not just the basics, we are going to talk about why supply chains behave chaotically and more importantly, what we can do about it. You know, in 2020, when COVID hit, most of us were shocked to see empty shelves in supermarkets. Toilet paper was gone, sanitizers were gone, even basic medicines were out of stock. And the question was why? Factories were still running, trucks were still driving, shops were still open. So, what went wrong? That is exactly what this video is about. We will go from the famous toilet paper panic all the way to how artificial intelligence is now being used to predict supply chain problems before they even happen. It is going to be super interesting, so stay with me. So let's start with the most important concept in supply chain management, the bullwhip effect. Now imagine you are holding a heavy whip. You give it just a tiny flick at the handle, and what happens? The other end of the whip cracks loudly and violently. A tiny movement at one end creates a massive reaction at the other end. That is exactly how a supply chain works. Let me make this super simple. A retailer, like a supermarket, notices that customers are buying slightly more toilet paper than usual. Maybe sales go up by just 5%. That is tiny, right? But the retailer gets scared. What if there is a shortage coming? So they order extra stock, maybe 15% more than usual. The wholesaler sees this bigger order and thinks, okay, demand must be going up. So they order maybe 25% more from the manufacturer. The manufacturer sees this huge surge and panics. They ramp up production by almost 40%. All of this started from just a 5% increase in actual customer demand. The 2021 toilet paper crisis. This is exactly what happened during COVID. People bought just a little extra toilet paper out of fear. But by the time this signal reached toilet paper manufacturers, they thought demand had shot through the roof. They ran factories 24 by 7. Then suddenly the panic buying stopped and manufacturers were left with mountains of unsold toilet paper. The whole system overreacted. Now let's talk about how business used to plan their supply chains and why that method is completely broken today. Back in 2019, before COVID, before the Ukraine war, before all the geopolitical tension we see today, the world was relatively stable. A clothing brand could sit down in January and plan exactly how much stock they needed for the whole year. Demand was predictable, shipping was reliable, lead times were stable. You could make an annual forecast, print it out, stick it on the wall, and follow it all year. That worked perfectly fine. But now, in 2026, the world is completely different. We have geopolitical disruptions, trade wars, sanctions, conflicts that close shipping routes overnight. We have rapid shift in consumer demand. TikTok can make a product go viral in 48 hours and create demand spike that no spreadsheet could have predicted. We have climate events, floods in Southeast Asia shutting down entire manufacturing zones. We have port delays and inflation shocks. Think about what happened with shipping containers in 2021-2022. The cost of shipping one container from China to Europe went from around $2,000 to over $20,000, a 10x increase. No annual forecast had accounted for that. Companies who had planned their cost based on old data suddenly faced enormous losses. The key insight here is simple but powerful. Static annual forecasting is now a business liability. If you are still relying on last year data to plan this year's procurement, you are flying blind. This slide is fascinating because it talks about something very human, fear and panic in business decision making. Let me walk you through the story shown on the slide. Imagine a regional supply chain manager. One day there is a minor shipping delay. Maybe a supplier is a week late. Now the manager starts to worry. What if we run out of stock? I better order extra just in case. So instead of ordering the normal 500 units, they order 2500 units. That is 2000 extra units order out of fear, not because customers actually need them. Now, here is where it gets dangerous. The supplier receives this huge order and thinks, wow, demand must have jumped. They ramp up their production, their raw material suppliers see this increased order and they ramp up too. The whole upstream network start producing massively, all based on one person panic decision. This is called phantom demand. Demand that was never real, created purely by psychological fear and overreaction. This happened in the semiconductor chip industry in 2021-22. Car manufacturers had slightly reduced their chip orders during COVID. When demand for car recovered, they ordered extra chips to be safe. Chip manufacturers interpreted this as a massive demand surge and ramped up production. The result? By 2023, there was a global chip oversupply, with some companies sitting on billions of dollars of unwanted chips. Companies like Intel and Samsung had to cut production significantly. The consequences of phantom demand are painful. Excess inventory piling up, warehousing cost going up, capital locked in stock that is not moving, and worst of all, production schedules completely misaligned with what customers actually want. Okay, so now we understand panic ordering. Let's talk about another major problem, batch ordering and information lag. Most companies do not order supplies every day. They wait and order in large batches, once a week, once a month, or even once a quarter. Why? Because it is more economical. You save on shipping cost, you get better prices for large orders, you fill up trucks completely. But here is a problem. When you wait to order in batches, you are working with old information. By the time you actually place your order, the demand data you are using could be weeks out of date. The example on this slide is brilliant. Imagine a fashion retailer sees a small spike in demand for blue shirts. They wait until the end of the month to place their batch order. But by that time, the signal has been misread, passed through multiple hands, and distorted. What started as a request for some blue shirts had, has become an order for 10,000 navy parkas. Nobody actually wanted 10,000 navy parkas. The signal got completely lost in the system. Think about fast fashion brands like Zara have solved this problem by placing very small, very frequent orders. They restock every 2 weeks based on what is actually selling in the stores right now. Their competitors who order seasonally are often left with huge amount of unsold stock. Zara's system gives them much better information. less lag, less distortion. When batch ordering and information lag work together, you get the worst outcomes. Poor forecasting accuracy based on stale data. Overstocking in some areas while other areas have stockouts. And by the time you understand what is really happening, the market has already moved on. Alright, now I want to talk about something that might be a little controversial: Excel. We all love Excel, right? It is familiar, it is powerful, it is everywhere. But the truth is, Excel was not built for the complexity of modern supply chains. And relying on it for supply chain management is genuinely dangerous. Here is why. When different departments in the company are managing their own separate Excel files, they end up working from different versions of the same data. The warehouse team has one inventory number, the procurement team has another, finance has third, nobody is looking at the same truth. And then there is a speed problem. Market can change in hours. A supplier can have a problem right now, a flood, a fire, a strike. But if you only update your Excel file once a week, you will not even know about it until it is too late. The 2024 electronic shortage is a perfect case study. Companies that were managing inventory through departmental spreadsheet had no real-time visibility into their stock levels. As chip shortages developed, their data was already outdated. Teams were making purchasing decisions based on old inventory numbers. The result was millions of dollars lost in excess and absolute inventory. Some departments over ordering while others were running out, all because they could not see the same live picture at the same time. The conclusion here is powerful and simple. Modern supply chains need connected digital ecosystem, not isolated files sitting on individual desktop. Every hour you spend manually updating a spreadsheet in an hour, your competitor with a real-time system is pulling ahead of you. Static tools in a dynamic world are not just inefficient, they are genuinely dangerous to your business. So, if Excel is not the answer, what is? There is where technology comes in, specifically AI powered procurement platforms like SAP Ariba. Let me explain what SAP Ariba does in simple terms. Think of it like a central nervous system for your entire procurement operation. Instead of data sitting in different spreadsheets across different departments, SAP Ariba connects everything: demand signals, supplier data, inventory levels, spending, all in one place, updated in real time. The really exciting feature is called guided sourcing, and I like to call it the procurement GPS. Think about how Google Map works. You put in your destination, and if there is a traffic jam ahead, it immediately reroutes you to avoid the problem. Guided sourcing does the same thing for procurement. If a supplier has a problem, maybe they cannot deliver on time, maybe their quality is dropping, the system detects this early and automatically suggests alternative suppliers. You do not have to wait for the problem to hit you. You are rerouted before the disruption even reaches your business. A major electronics manufacturer using SAP Ariba noticed through the systems analytics that one of their key component suppliers in Southeast Asia was consistently delivering 3-4 days later than contracted. Historically, this would only have been noticed after delays had already caused production problems. With SAP Ariba's real time visibility, their procurement teams could proactively negotiate better lead times and qualify backup suppliers months before any crisis hit, saving significant production downtime costs. The business value is clear. Faster procurement cycles because you are not waiting for information to travel slowly through the organization. Improved supplier visibility because you can see what is happening in real time, and reduced operational disruptions because you are solving problems before they become emergencies. Mapping the invisible tire network. This is one of the most important slides in this whole presentation because it reveals a risk that most companies completely ignore. When we talk about suppliers, most people think about their direct suppliers, the company they buy from. These are called Tier 1 supplier. You know who they are. You have contracts with them. You talk to them regularly. But those Tier 1 suppliers buy their components from somebody else. Those are Tier 2 suppliers. Component makers, you might know some of them, but your visibility is limited. And then Tier 2 suppliers buy their raw materials from somewhere. Those are Tier 3 suppliers. Raw material providers, mines, farms, chemical plants. Most companies have absolute zero visibility into Tier 3. Here is the terrifying reality. A problem at a Tier 3 supplier, a company you have probably never even heard of, can shut down your entire production. The most famous example is the Japanese earthquake and tsunami in 2011. A small factory in Japan that nobody had ever heard of, Merck KGA pigment plant in Okazaki, was damaged. This factory produced a specialized pigment used in the paint for cars. Because automotive manufacturers had no visibility into their Tier 3 supply chain, they had no idea this single factory supplied so much of the world's car paint. Production lines at Toyota, General Motors, Ford, and others had to slow down or stop, not because of their direct suppliers, but because of a tiny factory 3 levels deep in the supply chain. The 2025 automotive case study mentioned shows the power of modern AI tools. An automotive company used AI driven predictive analytics to detect the risk of a port strike 3 weeks before it happened. They had time to reroute their logistics and shift to different ports, and they experienced zero disruption while competitor who could not see this coming lost weeks of production time. Tools like SAP Business Networks give you visibility all the way down to Tier 3, replacing guest demand with verified live data and providing true end to end transparency. Alright, we are getting close to the end now, and I want to talk about practical blueprint. What does a world class supply chain actually look like in 2026? For decades, the dominant model was just in case. Companies kept large safety buffers, extra stock everywhere, just in case something went wrong. And yes, it does reduce the risk of stockouts, but the costs are enormous. Expensive warehouse space, capital locked up in inventory that is just sitting there, and a slow, rigid system that cannot adapt quickly. The modern approach is just in time precision, but not the old fragile version of just in time. This is data driven, sensor enabled, AI powered just in time. Instead of guessing when to reorder, smart systems use live sensor data from shelves and warehouses to trigger automated replenishment exactly when needed. No overordering, no stockouts, right product, right place, right time. A real life example is Amazon is probably the most advanced example of this. Their warehouses use real time data from thousands of sensors to track exactly how fast every single product is moving. When a product reaches a certain level, the system automatically triggers a reorder without any human intervention. They have even developed predictive shipping, where they start moving products toward customers before the customer has even placed the order. Based on purchase pattern prediction, their inventory turnover rate is dramatically faster than traditional retailers. The number on this slide is powerful. Reducing safety stock by just 15% can free up millions of dollars in working capital. That is money that can go into R&D, marketing, expansion instead of sitting in a warehouse collecting dust. And demand driven replenishment can achieve 3 times faster inventory turnover, meaning your capital is working much harder for you. And here we are, the future. What does winning look like in 2027 and beyond? The companies that will dominate are the ones who treat their supply chain not as a back office function but as a strategic competitive weapon. And three capabilities will define who wins. First, real time synchronization. Imagine all your suppliers, logistic partners, and procurement systems talking to each other continuously, sharing live data, eliminating the information lag that creates bullwhip distortions. When one part of the chain has a problem, every other part knows instantly and can adapt. Second is AI driven analytics. Instead of looking backward at historical data to forecast the future, AI system read live signals from the entire ecosystem, weather patterns, political news, port data, supplier financial health, and make prediction in real time. This turns procurement from a reactive function to a proactive one. Third is agile and resilient networks. This means deliberately building supplier networks with flexibility and redundancy. Instead of single source suppliers, you have qualified alternates ready. Instead of one logistic route, you have multiple options. Your network bends under pressure instead of breaking. Like companies like Apple have built multi-tiered supplier qualification programs. They never rely on a single supplier for any critical component. During the COVID disruptions, Apple was able to reroute the production and source from alternative suppliers far faster than competitors because they had already done the groundwork of qualifying those alternatives years earlier. The future of supply chain will operate like a single breathing organism, constantly sensing, adapting, and optimizing. Speed, visibility, and synchronization will define competitive advantage going forward. So, that is the wrap for today. If you found this valuable, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel grow. Thank you. See you in the next one.